Please make it to your seats. All right. Per the clerk, she said, hit the gavel. Good morning, everyone. How are you? All right. It is Thursday, October 24th. I'm going to call the Kent County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Good morning, Commissioners Antor.
Here.
Breivy.
Here.
Bulkowski.
Present.
Hennessy. Jones.
Here.
Kallman.
Here.
Melton.
Present.
Morgan.
Here.
Ponstein.
He's here.
Oh, well, that, I heard that. Saalfeld.
Here.
Skaggs.
Here.
Sparks. Vice Chair Steck.
Here.
Talon.
Here.
Bonk.
Here.
Voorhees.
Present, ma'am.
Womack.
Here.
Wooden.
Here.
Chair Bolter. Madam Chair, you have 18-ish. Madam Chair, you have 19 members present, 0 absent. You have a quorum.
One little tardy.
Fantastic. Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are on to item 3, invocation, and I'll call on Commissioner Bulkowski.
Thank you, Chair. Since we have so many new of us, I use this blessing, I don't know, maybe one of the first times I had the opportunity for the invocation. It comes from an Irish priest and mystic by the name of John O'Donohue, who unfortunately passed away 11 years ago at the ripe young age of 53. And this is a blessing for politicians. May you have the grace and wisdom to act kindly, learning to distinguish between what is personal and what is not. May you be hospitable to criticism. May you never put yourself at the center of things. May you act not from arrogance, but out of service. May you work on yourself, building up and refining the ways of your mind. May those who work for you know you see and respect them. May you learn to cultivate the art of presence in order to engage with those who you meet. When someone fails or disappoints you, may the graciousness with which you engage be their stairway to renewal and refinement. May you treasure the gifts of the mind through reading and creative thinking so that you continue as a servant of the frontier, where the new will draw its enrichment from the old and you never become functionary. May you know the wisdom of deep listening, the healing of wholesome words, the encouragement of the appreciative gaze, the decorum of held dignity, the springtime edge of the bleak question. May you have a mind that loves frontiers so that you can evoke the bright fields that lie beyond the view of the regular eye. May you have good friends to mirror your blind spots. And may leadership be for you a true adventure of growth. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. We are on to special order of business, and I will call on Dale Robertson. Welcome today
Yes, sir.
for a 10-minute presentation. Or less.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I am Dale Robertson, President of the Grand Rapids Public Museum. I'm trained as a lawyer. I mean, I can't say my name in 10 minutes.
Do your best.
But I'll do my best. So we've passed out the community report, so you've all got one of these in front of you. It's it's like a year lag. So what did you do last year? Here's what it is. So this is our third one will be coming out. We begin doing these after the passage of the millage, and so there will be one for every year going forward. Just for a little bit of context of I think where the museum's been on what's been a long journey, frankly. So when I showed up in this job in 2008, we had 68,000 people that visited the museum. At the end of our last fiscal year, we're on the July to June fiscal year cycle, we had 258,000 people that visited the Grand Rapids Public Museum. So the community is, I think as my mother used to say, you've got to earn your keep in the community. I don't think we were, obviously, at one point, but I think we are gaining that ground back and being responsive and honoring the role that I believe we have to be at our core, which we are an educational institution, right? So I think what I'd like to do in talking a little bit about where we are, what we're going, and how we're fulfilling the mission is to, like last year, I talked about the toys exhibit. I want to focus on another project that really takes in the use of our collections. So we are arguably the second largest museum in the state of Michigan with over 250,000 artifacts and specimens by the most conservative count, right? So, and that's probably off, but if I'm off low. Right. So now, I grew up 8 miles from the Henry Ford Museum, Greenfield Village, which is the largest by far museum in the state of Michigan. But because it's almost like family, I can take a shot at them, right? And I don't have any of the West Michigan humility either, right? So us, unlike them, right? Henry Ford bought about everything. 98% of what we've got donated by the people of West Michigan over the last 164 years. So the lawyer in me says there is an implied promise, an implied contract to use those collections to the greatest purpose, which I argue is education and inspiration. So to that end, we are breaking rules, and I love to break rules, all right, in the museum world by reclassifying objects so they can be handled and touched and used. All right, so now we've got 3 categories, Tier 1, 2, and 3. Tier 3 you can just hold, like, this. Maybe put on gloves. For Tier 2 and 1, you can't really touch. But we have a solution if there's a Tier 1 item that is really, really popular. So I'm going to pass around as I then tell the story. This is a replica of a Tier 1, which is actually pretty popular. If I can start with you, Madam Clerk. What that is, it's a replica of a 3,000-year-old Babylonian clay tablet. Yeah, we've got the real thing, all right? So Babylonian, present-day Iraq. And what's really interesting, if we think about, history, science, and culture, fits in your hand, feels like an iPhone, doesn't it? Pretty close. All right? So we think Steve Jobs is a genius. He is, but really fulfilling a basic human need. It's a personal communication device. Actually, it appears to be a shopping list for either making bread or beer. Yeast, all that. So what are we doing with all these things? Reclassifying, putting them all online. So we began a program piloted with Grand Rapids Public Schools through the museum school, and now has moved over to another bit of a test with Valleywood Middle and Kentwood. And what this is kids go into the archives, they are able to pick an artifact, and then for the next period of time, the middle schoolers use a couple of weeks. The high school, Grand Rapids High School, is using the entire year, where they become an expert on that artifact. So what does that do? What's that mean? That's right. That teaches sustained thinking. That teaches in-depth thinking. That helps then spur interdisciplinary connections, right? As what can you stitch together to take this, to curate some bigger whole? And imagine the confidence, right, that you get as a student of being an expert. And I've had my own interactions with these middle schoolers saying, showing me something they're an expert. So Dale, did you know this? And Dale, did you know that? That full confidence, right? So as an educational institution, here's as I'm getting close to my time, maybe one of the main things, right? We're educating kids today for positions and jobs that we don't know what they are. When I was growing up, the whole picture was climbing the corporate ladder. Our kids are going to be rock climbers, right? They're going to have to figure things out. So the skills, some core skills they need is communication, collaboration, critical thinking, be able to make connections between things that may not seem connected, right? And this VAULT project, we call it, the Grand Rapids Public has actually, they've created a whole class, they call it curation. So our own internal thing is VAULT. This VAULT project then helps in building those types of skills, right, that leaders, any leaders are going to need into the future. So that's just one of the ways in which we're making use of the collections. The other thing I would mention also, which I think is also important, we are one of the 7 opportunity sites for the river restoration, right? So the rapids go in, then there will be work done in particular places on the banks. And so we're primed and ready to go on a piece of the waterfront. But the other thing, too, is we serve 30,000 school kids annually. The only reason we don't do more is we don't have any more room. So we're looking at putting an addition, we're calling it a tower on the south end, and of going through a very deliberative process, and that is to make sure that that addition, and then whatever happens to work on the flow through the entire building, coming after that, embraces those principles of being as physically and cognitively accessible to the broadest population, right? So you have to be able to get in, and we have to make sure that however we are conveying information, it works for you however we learn. So we have this belief, we have these bodies, we crave active learning, right? It's the visceral experiences that create the strongest hooks for future information to land on, but we've got to present it in a way that works for everybody and then build in, so however you see yourself, you can see yourself after that. So I'm probably not supposed to announce this because I don't think it's official yet, but I will tease this out anyway. One of the people that have informed where we are going is named Temple Grandin. And this is where I argue the VAULT project makes sense, right? Autistic, PhD in animal husbandry, right? Watched how cows calm themselves and then use that to inform a special education modality, all right, called sensory integration therapy. All right? So we're bringing her to town, all right, next year. So and then we'll have community conversations, partnering with the Diversity Lecture Series at GRCC. We'll work with our educators, other educators, right, to inform our educational program and our design of the building and those additions. Commissioner Bukowski's organization has done an assessment for us as part of this process. So we take that charge very seriously. It is the core to who we are. Last thing I'll say then, in wrapping this up, is I don't want you to think that I'm anything great about this. All right. And here's the beauty of West Michigan. In the 1930s, when that old museum building was being built, it was a unique design in the nation, street level. All right, and Frank Dumont said back then, the goal is to be as accessible as a neighborhood dime store and friendly as your next door neighbor. The plaque says dedicated to free dissemination of knowledge, education to all. Members of the commission, we're just running Frank Dumont's playbook in the 21st century. It's who this museum is. It's our DNA. Thank you for the millage to allowing us the stability and able to grab and take hold of that mission that they have bequested us then for us to take forward. Thank you for having me today.
All right, questions for Dale? Commissioner Melton.
Thank you, Dale, for presenting, and your excitement is pretty amazing. I just saw him at the late hours of last night at the Disability Advocates Gala. One of the things that they offered, and I just kudos to Dale, so to show that his excitement doesn't end with his job. One of the things that was offered last night for auctioning off at the thing is a behind-the-scenes tour of all of the artifacts and whatever else that they have that aren't out. And to entice people, he actually added adult beverages in case it wasn't something that just you wanted to take for kids. And it elicited way more interest than, I'll be honest, I thought. Lots of people bid on it, and it was just very, very cool to see, again, someone in the community coming into something else that we support as a commission and offering that to just people who were there last night. So thanks, Dale.
Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Polster. Dale, thanks for being here today. I'm on page 4 of your community engagement report. Could you expand on what's going on with model stewardship, where it began, where it is, and what does the future look like?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. So we are the stewards of the Norton Indian Mounds, and really began refocusing on the mounds in the last maybe year and a half. We had an employee, Deb Muller, who was working on this project and passed away, and that was right in the midst of all of the whole financial thing. So we have, in working with the Native community and the Grand Rapids Community Relations Committee, we have then gone through a process of looking at the mounds and determining what steps need to be made to just first off mitigate damage there. And so actually Ron Yob, who's the chair of the Grand River Band of Ottawa Indians, is now a member of our board, right? And so none of us go out to the mounds without contacting Ron first and making sure that it's prepared properly and so forth. And so the native community has come in agreement that we would stabilize. So there was one mound that was in danger of actually falling into a gravel pit. And so that has been stabilized and protected in native plantings. Some are going in now, and some will be going back in April. There was an oil well that was in very close proximity, and the oil company, Goodale Inc., has agreed to cap the well. And so the well is capped. The equipment's been taken away. I think the path is going to be put back with native plantings, and now we are then in discussions then for what happens with the rest of the mound. Is it stabilization? Is there going to be some work done to say take out some trees that are in danger of falling, which may uproot? But those conversations are with the Native American community, and everything is done in lockstep, members of the community, and of course with the city Community Relations Commission. The City of Grand Rapids does hold title to all the land, all the buildings, and all the artifacts, so it's very important that we connect with them too.
Commissioner Steck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Dale.
Good morning.
First of all, congratulations on being able to get an oil company to cap a well. I know that's an expensive process, and for them to voluntarily do that was no small feat. One of the things that some of us were concerned about when we went into this era of millage support is what impact that may have on your charitable giving as one of the legs of your support. And I noticed in your report it's at about 22%. Is it still strong, and is it growing?
Thank you. Yes, it is strong. It is growing. We have been hitting our fundraising goals. Of course, our plans then for the future is going to require a major fundraising efforts. Mm-hmm. Here's what I think I would argue on all of that is that as our attendance has gone up and the more programs that we can offer, actually the investments we've been able to make because of the millage in our educational programming, every educational program we offer is tied directly to curriculum. So when a teacher brings a class, they know exactly what points are going to be hit. So not only do we have, I would argue, better programs, streamlined programs that are much more targeted with more staff to carry them out. That's why we've got more demand for school kits than we have places for. So when we go out and we tell the story in fundraising, this is what we need your help to continue to expand, right, and continue to offer more programs. Before, I had to ask for donations to pay the electric bill. Now I can say, can you help me create a program? Can you help me provide bus service? We got a really nice donation from Crystal Flash to bring kids from the rural areas And if I can just, so they donated an amount that was supposed to last for a year. It was gone within the first 2 months. And then they re-upped it. And it was gone in another 2 months, and they re-upped it again. So there is demand region-wide. And so that's what this millage is allowed to do, is we would have never had that partnership with Crystal Flash before, but for this.
Great. Congratulations again.
Any other questions for Dale? Commissioner Talon.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment, Dale, and appreciate your work, but also want to note it's pretty easy to talk about diversity and the diversity, incredible diversity we have in our community. It's another thing to actually affirm that and act on it. And in my observations of what goes on at the museum, you are doing that, and I want to commend you for that. All the way from the programs that you have, the educational programs, the events that you sponsor, you look at your board membership. It's really important to walk that talk, and I appreciate the way that you do that. So thank you.
Sure.
So, Commissioner, I thank you for that. Yeah, we have really worked to increase the composition of our board. Again, the millage, just with that stability and our growth, presents new opportunities for us. And, we had one just the other day. And this is bigger than the whole diversity. It goes the whole human resources and culture and how we present ourselves, or as the young people would say, how we show up in the community. And you know what? I had a chance to approach Mary Beth Jelks about joining our executive leadership team, who's in charge of human resources for the city for years, and she has. All right, so now we are, and she's good. And so we are poised now to take another step and another level, not just with diversity inclusion, but I'd say human resources, creating culture, our training, how we interact with the with the entire public. We've got some expertise now, and she's just another one of those folks, in addition to Dr. Stephanie Ogre, an aquatic biologist who's running all those education programs. I mean, it's, sometimes I almost wonder, do I even fit in the room here with all this talent?
Commissioner Voorhees.
Thank you, Dale. Last month, our son's business held a sales meeting at the museum, and they speak so highly of it. And it's great to see that opportunity, as he brought people in from the 5 states that they cover, and they're so impressed with our museum, and so compliments and for the involvement that the business world can enjoy and find a good place to hold meetings, and so compliments in that arena as well.
Sure.
I mean, I could stay up here all day. I know you got to move on. But just on that, so Commissioner Voorhees, when people have come into town, they have said, this is not like most museums, right? But here's the thing that I argue is a unique and special thing about the Grand Rapids area, just, listening and connecting with folks. We have to have constant humidity and constant temperature 24 hours a day, right, because of the artifacts and so forth. So, most museums, that's why they don't have windows. All right, so when this museum was first being built by the museum architects, right on the river, didn't have any windows. Jay Van Andel says, oh no, we've got this in the archives. I can spin a yarn, but this is true. All right, you got to have windows. How can you be on the river and not have windows and not have that kind of connect? Jay Van Andel, 25 years ago. That's one of the reasons why it feels so good and it feels different, right? Is just that input of, we got to not just have a building that's a museum. We've got to have a building that's a community gathering place, and that's why I would argue that design and that and that the architects listened. Well, it was Jay, smart, right? But yeah. So thank you for recognizing that, and there's some very purposeful things that were done 25 years ago that I think continue to pay dividends on and on and on and on and on.
Commissioner Bukowski.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just echoing a lot of comments about your continued leadership, just reflecting on my blessing that was aimed at us, but your leadership definitely echoes that, being at the frontier. And I don't know if it's my West Michigan humility or just being tired from last night, but wanting to, again, we as disability advocates work with a lot of folks, and very few, if any, again, have excitement is too easy of a word, but just the way you are relentless on challenging us to challenge you. And so it's like, no, that doesn't sound frontier enough. Let's get out there and really be inclusive at all levels. So again, yeah, you challenge us more than we challenge you. So thank you so much for your continued leadership and not being afraid to bring all those folks that can really add to that edge. So thank you.
Any other questions today? I just have a comment and a suggestion. I did tour with my son's school group, and I can personally attest, how great the leader was that walked us through and educated the class. It was amazing, down to what kind of specific fish we were looking at, and it was great. It is very tight in there with school groups. I can also attest to that. And then wondering if maybe this was awesome, and I'm not sure who put it together, but it's probably one of the most concise and informative reports that I've seen in a while. And wondering if there's a way to further increase rural children's participation. Now with the millage, all those families are paying for this museum, and I would really like to see further and more purposeful engagement, especially out in, the Cedar Springs area and some of the areas where the kids don't have these opportunities to get here. If we could maybe highlight that and how we're doing that in the future and work on that, that'd be great. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. All right, we are on to item 6, public comment related to the agenda. Do we have any public comment today regarding agenda items? All right, seeing none, we are on to item 7, and I'll call on Commissioner Bukowski.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move today's consent agenda in its entirety.
Moved by Commissioner Bukowski.
Support.
Support by Commissioner Melton. Questions or comments on the consent agenda? Seeing none, this is a roll call. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the motion to adopt the consent agenda, Commissioners Antor.
Yes.
Breivy.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Kallman.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Salfeld.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
Vice Chair Steck.
Yes.
Commissioners Talon.
Yes.
Vonk.
Yes.
Voorhees.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 19 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. The consent agenda is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're on to item 8A, resolutions, and I'll call on Commissioner Skaggs.
Thank you, Chair. I move Resolution 100 of today's date, the reappointment of Jerry Koyman to the Department of Health and Human Services Board for a 3-year term.
Any questions? Moved by Commissioner Skaggs, support by Commissioner Morgan. Questions or comments? I just have one. I worked for Jerry. This is his passion, and I'm glad to see that you guys are reappointing him. So this is not a roll call vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. On to item 8B, Commissioner Skaggs.
Thank you, Chair. I move Resolution 101 of today's date, motion to update the legislative policy priorities to include bail reform.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Skaggs, support by Commissioner Steck. Questions or comments on this resolution? Commissioner Vonk.
Yes, I voted no on this on Tuesday, not because I was against what this policy represents, but why it's coming before us. It's sort of dotted line to our board. We really didn't have our hands on the steering wheel on this issue, and I just don't, if we're going to celebrate maybe quarterly celebrations or whatever on a lot of issues that we're all a part of. Years ago, my trauma surgeon brought me to Lansing on the catastrophic car insurance issue. And I was there as a resident, and there was a lot more people in that room that were beat up a lot more than I was. And Lisa Lyons was on the board at that time and was part of the hearing. And so I went up to Lisa and I says, how is this going to come out? And she says, well, this is how it looks like it's forming up. You know, that was her work to do back then. At the landfill some time ago, I mentioned to you that a woman lost her false teeth, and we found them. And I said to the then Director Wood, I says, how much did that cost us? He says, it's all part of a day's work. And we do things like this constantly on this board and other boards and federal and state, and it's all part of the day's work. And sometimes we take a little time, we Project Elevate, or Monday as we talked at the DPW about a $250,000 grant that we're going to receive. Yeah, there's time for celebration, but I don't know if this is the place. So that's just my comment.
Commissioner Saalfeld.
Thank you, Chair. I will be voting no for these reasons. Excuse me, in my, I want to say in my 8+ years on the board, I've not seen a priority come before us that I did not feel belonged before us, and this certainly qualifies. And let me just read some of the whereases. Bail determination is one of the most difficult decisions in a criminal case, and one that requires an individualized assessment of the circumstances surrounding each defendant to ensure appropriate pretrial release decisions. The legislative package largely codifies Kent County's existing felony charge procedures. It will create a uniform system that provides greater judicial discretion in considering key risk factors and aligning bail decisions with those factors. Okay, I'm a lawyer and I don't know anything about the things I just read. I don't know about the felony charge procedures. I don't know what's involved in the risk factors that judges decide. And it underscores that this is an issue that does not belong before the county commission. May be perfectly good on a substantive level, but we got to be careful that we stay within the realms of what the county commission is supposed to do. This is a sheriff's issue, probably a prosecutor issue. It's not a drain commissioner issue, it's not a clerk issue, it's not a county treasurer issue, and it's not a Kent County Board of Commission issue. And I think we got to be real careful about taking up priorities on items that do not fall under the governance of this board, because if we want to start doing that, you're going to get flooded with stuff about federal government, stuff about state government, stuff about things, city governance, things that don't belong before us. So that is why I will vote no on this. Again, it's not about the substance of this, it is about the procedure and the fact that this does not belong before us. Thank you.
Yep. Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. I do support this motion, and let me articulate why I do support it. First, I think with the understanding of what legislation is at issue here and its impact on the county and its services, I think it is clearly in our best interest. It addresses some ongoing concerns about Medicaid costs with this population and the cost of incarceration. So, one, I think it is in the best interest of the county. Two, unlike many issues that I see swirling around some of our neighboring county commissions, this issue, I do believe, directly and meaningfully impacts the costs and the process of our county services. It's one area of county services. It's not everything. There are other legislative priorities that address other components of some of the services in the county. But merely because it doesn't deal with everything, doesn't mean it's not appropriate. So I do think that this particular issue, this policy, this legislation is legislation that directly and meaningfully impacts our services at the county. The third is I accept that this does involve jurisdiction issues that impact other elected county officials, such as the prosecutors, such as the sheriff, maybe the judiciary. But this particular policy statement has been very carefully, thoroughly vetted with each of these other elected officials and their spheres. So we are not moving forward with a policy issue that is going to put us in tension with our other elected officials. We've been very careful to make sure that we are aligned with them. So given the fact that we are aligned with our other elected officials, unlike other issues, the fact that we have a policy issue which I think is directly and meaningfully connected and related, and therefore this is not one of those theoretical political issues that we could get caught up inappropriately with. I think it is directly connected, and there's a strong nexus between our particular policies, our cost of our policies, the cost of our practices, and the cost of our provision of services, that it is appropriate to take it on. And finally, I would just point out that our standing rules 5.1 does in fact mandate that we continue to be observant, to watch, to measure, to value legislative issues as they come up.
Any other questions or comments on this resolution? Commissioner Voorhees.
Madam Chair, thank you. In the legislative committee, what was the discussion, or maybe what was the result of the discussion in the legislative committee? The vote, what that number was, and what were these issues brought up there as well?
It was,
Go ahead.
okay, I'll report as the chair. It was a voice vote, so it was not a roll call vote. So it was, my recollection, it was unanimous with the exception of Commissioner Funk.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Talon.
Thank you, Chair. I recognize the concern about getting into too many things that perhaps aren't directly related to the things that are within the purview of the County Commission. I just want to say that from what I have learned in my work on the Governor's Jails Task Force, bail decisions by judges are extremely relevant to public health, to family health, to education. Bail decisions have long-term impacts on families. When someone's in jail for 3 days even, it can affect their ability to keep their job, which then they lose their job. It can have impacts. And all of that can end up being toxic for a family and affect long-term readiness for kindergarten, all the things that we are interested in as a Board of Commissioners. So I do think in that way, if we take a look at the data related to those decisions by judges, it's really important to get them right and to have good policies in place. So I just add that to the conversation.
Commissioner Melton.
I'm going to pass.
Any other first-timers before I call on Commissioner Salfeld again? All right, Commissioner Salfeld. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Womack.
Yes, I do believe we need bail reform, and I do think with the participation of the county when it comes to justice in this county and the concerns of our constituents, I definitely think it's a priority that we should be able to decide yea or nay on whether we support that resolution or the state priorities. As Commissioner Talon said, it can have a huge effect upon citizens depending on the discretion of the judge to give them a bail that he seems is fit for what's coming before him. So that added discretion when it comes to bail reform, I think is much needed. It's something that the citizens have been shouting out for. So it's definitely something I support. At the same time, when I'm looking at what we read when it came to the resolutions on what we support here on Resolution 1024-19-101, then when we look at the actual state priorities, there's something in there that kind of concerned me, and that was codifying these factors and requiring defendants to disclose their financial assets under the penalty of perjury. Will equip our judges with the tools and data needed to make equitable, informed pretrial release decisions. At the executive level of our government, the right has been taken not to reveal taxes. So now we're telling people who are coming in jail they have to reveal their assets, and they can be found perjury. And when we look at some of the mental depositions of some of the people may come through the court system, when we look at the trauma, even being arrested if you are innocent, and you're trying to let someone know all your assets under perjury, and this might seem a little petty to those who haven't been on the other side of, been in a defendant's chair, but Perjury is something I've had to talk to our prosecutors many times, because when you're talking to law enforcement, and perjury could be as simple as someone asking a mother who was convicted of perjury, because they asked, did she discuss her son's case on Facebook? In our community, Facebook and Facebook Messenger are two different things. And the Facebook Messenger actually was proven to be a separate app from Facebook. I'm gonna hurry up.
Okay.
But she said that one little sentence on Messenger from 2 years before she was subpoenaed, they asked, did you ever discuss it on Facebook? And she, out of everything she said in this long deposition, everything was true except she told somebody she heard her son might have been in a little trouble at the park. And that's a 5-year sentence. So when we say perjury on those assets, your mom gives you a ring, or she dies and you get a ring or some jewelry, you forget to put that on there, that could be perjury. I'm very surprised that that's in there, and I did have to speak upon that for those that may not understand how important the penalty of perjury could be on some of these defendants.
Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. My only concern is, it seems like we may be opening up a little can of worms, because we're voting here, a yes or no on something we really have no purview over. I mean, these are decisions that are above my pay grade, and I don't want to open the door to groups coming in here and protesting our decision here when we don't have anything to do with the actual language within this. And to open up that door again and have people come in and blow up our meetings blaming us for something that is outside of our purview, I'm not comfortable with. Thank you.
Yep. Any other first-time? Commissioner Coleman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just request on this vote that we make it a roll call.
Motion to make this a roll call vote. Do I have a second? Moved by Commissioner Coleman, support by, was that? Oh, I don't need it? Okay. Okay, so this will be a roll call vote. Do we have further discussion on this? Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. First, I just want to make it very clear, I will be voting for this resolution. I'm thankful for the work of Chair Steck, Commissioner Skaggs, staff, especially Ms. Latham, on crafting this legislative priority. I hear the conversation around precedent that might be set with this, but I'm recalling in our previous legislative priorities, we did accept that raise the age legislation in its core concept. Obviously, the details were not necessarily hammered out, was a legislative priority of us, even though that involved our sheriff's department and our judicial system. And it was because we saw how those decisions impact our ability to fund services. And in addition, the fact that even though they are different elected offices and they have different autonomies and different jurisdictions, they are still under the umbrella of county government. It's why we also have had funding priorities for our air traffic control tower. Even though that is under an independent authority, it is under the umbrella of the county. And so while I understand the concern about the precedent that would be set, I don't believe that we have reached that point. I believe that this clearly has an impact on how we fund our services. It has an impact on the constituents that we serve, and provides our judicial system with the discretion that they need. For that reason, I'll be voting for this, and thank you again.
Any other first-time comments before I go to second round? All right, Commissioner Suffield.
Well, the umbrella of the county is not the test, because if that were the case, we could sign off and make decisions and make recommendations on anything. Hey, airport, we don't like your director. We make a resolution that the executive committee remove the director. I mean, that's where this stuff can go. There's comments about this being related to Medicare and how it impacts county services, but I don't see one thing in any of this language that gets into it. It's all about decisions that judges make, decisions about felony charge procedures, and so forth. And I just continue to say, I think we're straying outside of our territory here, and I think we're opening up a can of worms, and I guess maybe the ICE protesters were right to be in front of us. At the time, we said, you shouldn't be here because this is a sheriff's decision on whether or not how to handle the incarceration of people who are arrested. And you know, if umbrella of the county is the standard, if you can tie it into any little item involving the budget or something like that, then I guess it does belong here, but I don't think that's right. And I've never seen that in my 8 years. Everything that's been mentioned does have a direct connection to, and the other items have a direct connection to what we're engaged in. This one does not. And I think the language could not be more clear in explaining that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Salvo. Commissioner Vonk.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask council, what difference does it make if I vote yes or I vote no? What, on the outcomes? What will be the difference?
At the state.
Well, Commissioner, if I understand your question correctly,
The outcome, the outcome.
if this is adopted by the board as one of our legislative priorities, then the administration will work to support these proposed bills as they go through Lansing. They would take it's my understanding, and Wayman jump in, but they would take an affirmative position with these bills as opposed to staying silent or a neutral type position.
Yeah, that's usually how it works. Thank you. Yeah, correct.
Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair. Let me first say that I certainly have immense respect for my colleague, Commissioner Salfield, though we may sometimes disagree. This apparently is one of those where we disagree. I'm also share, though, the concern that he has and others do that in our efforts to identify what issues, what policy issues at the state or federal level are appropriate for us to consider, we need to be very careful. We do not want this to devolve into a circumstance where all public justice issues are fair game for this body, because we will quickly paralyze ourselves. We simply don't want to go there. So when I read the standing rules that we adopted, which stated that the Legislative Human Resources Committee will, not may, not can, but will continue to develop written legislative priorities, I think we have an obligation to at least go through the exercise of determining, is this a legislative issue that's appropriate or not. The language that Commissioner Salfield uses is, does it have a direct connection? Well, I share that one. Not all issues of public justice are appropriate for us to consider. There are many, probably most, that wouldn't be appropriate because they're uniquely engaging issues that involve state issues only or federal issues only that don't directly impact our obligations as a county commission. They might incidentally affect it, but incidentally affecting it is not sufficient in my judgment. Merely because we have an issue that's important to our population in this county is not sufficient. They may even feel very passionately about it, still not sufficient. Where I suggest and where I use a standard for determining what would be appropriate is, does it directly and meaningfully impact the county's provision of services? Now, there's a judgment call there, right? And we all have to make that judgment. Does it directly and does it meaningfully impact the obligations, the services, the costs, the way we provide our services at the county? Not how does the state run its jail, not does it do this or that, but how does it impact what we at the county do? In my personal judgment, this does directly and meaningfully impact that. And that's why I think it's appropriate this time on this issue to engage it. But this issue also has other complications, as some do. That is that this involves a matter that's also within the concurrent jurisdiction of other elected officials, including our prosecutor, including our sheriff, including our judiciary. So I agree, we need to be very careful when we engage in a discussion of a legislative policy that impacts the responsibilities of our other elected officials. So when we look at the language we have here, one of the reasons why it might be a little bit less than the smoothest of presentations is because we are being very sensitive to our other elected officials. So this policy does not come out of the blue. It has been carefully vetted, walked through word for word with these other elected officials, and has their endorsement and support. So to move in this particular issue, we are not taking on the tensions that I think you might with others.
So again, underscore, I'm very sensitive to the fact that we cannot devolve into all issues that are always relevant for us to debate. We need to be circumspect, careful, and be very specific in identifying what is appropriate. But some we have already taken on. Some of them that that we've already adopted might have elements that could have been contentious, but they haven't been. With respect to this one, I would finally say, I think that substantively, if we go around the table, most of us would find this to be supported. This is good legislation. It is merely a question, I think, for a number of us is, are we sending a precedence that's going to lead us where we don't want to go? I support it with a full expectation that we will not devolve down that path. This is one that I think is appropriate. My colleagues may think it is not, and that's certainly appropriate to make that call on your own behalf. But I support it because I've done that analysis. Thank you.
Great. This is important discussion, and I appreciate, but since we're referring to rules, Rule 3.3 does discuss each member has 2 times to speak on an issue and no more than 5 minutes. So, Commissioner Voorhees.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first paragraph of the proposal before us says, a bipartisan legislative package of bills was recently introduced in the Michigan legislature. I had the honor of spending 6 years in the Michigan legislature, and I've known where bills have been introduced that the person that introduced them, when they got done, wouldn't sign them. We don't know what's going to be in these bills as they go through the legislative process. And for us to say, maybe I would vote for something that said, I think a principle such as this or that would be one thing, but to come out and support a defined bill in the legislative process is foolish, because you don't know what the end product is going to be. So I'll be voting no on it, and if they want to come back with an idea, a principle, but not that we're tying ourselves to a piece of legislation that we don't even know what and how it will end up. So I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Commissioner Morgan.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I better turn my, I guess this is, when I look at legislative priorities, it's just that. And we're talking about a piece of legislation that's been introduced. We don't even know what the amendments are. We don't even know how this thing's going to come out at the other end, and we're going to put our stamp of approval on that and lobby for it. So I guess I'm a little bit concerned that the end product may not be anything that we could all agree on, because it's got to go through the process. And I guess as far as legislative priorities go, I think it's just that at some point in time, you got to understand what's a priority of the county and what's not. So that's.
Commissioner Bolkowski for the second time.
Nope, first time on this issue. Thank you.
First time on this issue.
That's okay.
Apologize, it's been a long one.
It's been a long one, and I'll try to keep it short. I mean,
Wonderful.
I mean, the reality is, I believe our priorities reference bills. They have to. And what I believe this process does is it makes it a priority so the administrator and his staff and our lobbyists can work on this. So if we don't approve this, we won't, I mean, they may still spend time on it. I'm just saying we're not barring them from, but we're saying, please spend time on this so we can make sure when it goes through the process in Lansing, we like the result, or we can speak against the result and be prepared for the result. We have to be engaged on the issues that are of the county. So I understand the concerns of Commissioner Salfeld. However, I agree with Commissioner Steck that this is squarely in our purview. And so this says, please be part of the process and be aware, keep us aware. Thank you.
Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the reading of the resolution and also the legislative priority suggests to me that this is within the bounds of what a legislative priority is. It's not something that is directly the purview of this board. in which case we have to express our opinion because it does influence the work of this board and the county generally in very specific ways. So I'm persuaded that this is one of those things that falls, within what a legislative priority is. And I don't think that reading the resolution, or the language would suggest that we are expressing support for a particular package of bills in the state legislature. We're merely expressing, because there is this discussion, that we will express our opinion as part of that process so that it's favorable to the operations of Kent County.
Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As uncomfortable as it may be at times, we cannot be afraid when the constituents come before us, because it's their right and it's our privilege to serve. So we get questioned, then we just get questioned.
Commissioner Womack for the second time.
Yes, I'll definitely be supporting bail reform. And when we look at our Kent County Jail, and we look at the time people spend there, we look at the money that is spent on bail, the money that is spent on our situation with incarcerated people, I don't know how we say that this is an item that shouldn't be in front of us. I don't know how some commissioners refer this to being in comparison to the federal agency ICE. It's a total different situation when we're talking about state citizens, county citizens here in Kent County. So I definitely agree that this is something that should be within our purview to at least have an opportunity to speak about. But I do respect everyone. It just simply comes down to a vote. For those of us that support it, yay. For those that don't, nay. But I definitely respect everybody's opinion. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Antor for the second time.
Sorry, Madam Chair, but my opportunity, I just, again, I have a lot of respect for both of the attorneys sitting on my right. I do. They both have gone through this. They both have compelling arguments either way. I just keep getting caught up on, I hate to compare this with the federal government, but I remember when Speaker Pelosi once famously said about health care reform, we'll read the bill after we pass it. And unfortunately, we didn't know what was in there until after it was passed, and it's come back to haunt us in many, many ways. And I agree with some of my fellow commissioners that we don't know what this thing's going to end up as at the end. I really don't want to support it because I don't know what I'm putting my name on, and that's not a good way to do business, in my opinion. So I don't think this is going to affect this thing one way or the other, whether we vote yes or no. I do know if we vote no, we're erring on the side of caution. If we vote yes on it, we're opening the door to a lot of people coming in and saying, look what you guys did. And so for that reason, I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Hennessy.
For the first time.
Thank you.
Commissioner Steck's reading on the Legislative and Human Resources Committee charge brought me to my standing role, and we are charged with, reviewing the proposed legislation that materially affects the county, and to direct the efforts of the county's lobbyists. And I think in many ways this does direct the efforts of the county's lobbyists. I look at our other state legislative proposals, and they state an overall aim or goal that we would like to see, but it is not necessarily tied to specific legislation that can be amended along the way, whether it be 911 surcharge transparency, recreational marijuana, or indigent defense. Just as three of our priorities. So, these are generalized aims and goals that we are going to be working towards in our legislative priorities. From that perspective, I do support the addition of this priority.
Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chair. And actually, kudos to Commissioner Womack, although I've come to a different conclusion due to his comment. When you look at disclosing financial assets under the penalty of perjury, you made a perfect case for voting no on this, because that's a really significant component that could make something bad go even worse. So I'm not a fan of proposing and supporting that part of it. So I'm going to be voting no, but thanks.
Commissioner Wooden for the second time.
Thank you, Chair. Frankly, most of my comments were already mentioned, but I would just emphasize the point that our position is on the general concept of bail reform with the details that were provided on the benefits of it, the factors that we value when it comes to judicial discretion. Details are called out in here, so I don't necessarily bear the same worry that the legislation itself will change, and as a result, we are tying ourselves to legislation that we don't support, because we are very clear with what we do support here within the legislative priority. And I trust the wisdom of our county staff, our county sheriff, our county prosecutor, and the other folks that were involved in this discussion that have a myriad of different opinions and different experiences on this matter. And again, I would just echo that I do believe it is within the confines of our focus. I had a constituent coffee hour 2 weeks ago, and a lady came to me asking if we would support a resolution involving the Federal Communications Commission, and I told her outright no. And it wasn't because I didn't empathize with her concern, but because that clearly was out of our purview. But this is involving things that we not only fund, but we have an integral involvement in. And I would just echo Commissioner Steck's comments when it comes to our purview. So thank you.
Anyone else? All right. I will be voting yes to support my vice chair and the work that was done in the legislative subcommittee. However, this really wasn't the intent of and how I envisioned legislative priorities would go moving forward. So I think we need to be very cautious about that moving forward. When we changed up the way things were done years ago, it was kind of to take, there could be 50 issues. It was to take and decide as a consensus the top 10 to make sure to hold legislators accountable and get those done. Because as a consensus body, these are the things that we really want to get done. When we handed them a list of 25 items, things weren't getting done. It was too extensive. No one was holding them accountable. And that's why we literally created just the priorities. It doesn't mean things aren't on the list. It just means these are the things that we really expect them to get done. So I will be voting yes, and Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 1024-19-101, Commissioners Antor.
No.
Breivy.
No.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
Jones.
No.
Coleman.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Morgan.
No.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Salfeld.
No.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Sparks.
Oh, yes.
Vice Chair Steck.
Yes.
Commissioners Talon.
Yes.
Vonk.
No.
Voorhees.
No.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 12 yeas, 7 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 1024-19-101 is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are finally on to 8C. And I will call on Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move the final resolution, 102, it's the apportionment report from the Equalization Department.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Morgan, support by Commissioner Jones. Questions or comments? This is a roll call. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 1024-19-102, Commissioners Antor.
Yes.
Breivy.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Salfeld.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
Vice Chair Steck.
Yes.
Commissioners Talon.
Yes.
Vonk.
Yes.
Voorhees.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Chair Bolter.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 19 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 1024-19-102 is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are on to item 9, our poor public comment folks hanging out in the back. Please come forward for public comment related to any county matter. Name and address. We have some props today.
Okay.
Don't collapse on us.
I promise I
Don't
won't.
collapse, Julie. We don't have the medical tech staff here to take care
Wouldn't
of you.
surprise me if some of you guys are medical techs. I bet one of you is, actually.
Yeah, but I'd faint.
Yeah. I don't think I could hold that up. Welcome to the Board of Commissioners.
Oh, thank you. So my name is Julie, and I live in Plainfield Township. I am very glad to hear from Commissioner Bukowski this morning that being relentless about your passion is a good thing. And on that note, it's very nice to see you all again. I've missed you. In August, Animal Control was called to a Granville home about a puppy that was being kept in a backyard with chains that were hanging around its young neck. I sent you all a picture. Animal Control told that owner to remove the weights and instructed the owner not to use weights around a dog's neck. In September, the same dog was again photographed wearing 35 pounds of weights around its neck. A 5-month-old puppy, by the way, only weighs about 30 pounds. This dog had to drag more than its body weight, 35 pounds of weights, to get a drink of water or any food. Animal Control did not permanently remove that dog from the home, and it became clear that Animal Control was not going to permanently remove that dog from the home. The public was understandably outraged when that photo went viral on Facebook, and someone allegedly stole the puppy. And it was all over the news. I'm not sure if you guys saw it or not, but someone apparently broke in, home invasion, and took the puppy, supposedly. This owner was told not to hang weights around its dog's neck. The owner did not abide by that. They did it again. And my question is, on this second offense, why was the dog not permanently removed from the home? Because that would be considered animal abuse, I think, to pretty much any normal person, so I don't really understand what happened there. I've been told that Animal Control doesn't like to bring cases to the prosecutor because either they're not tried or judges just toss them. So what's the point of even bringing a case? So for this particular situation, we have photo evidence. We have a picture. I sent it all to you guys yesterday, yes? Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I'm wondering what we can do to help encourage our Animal Control to prosecute these cases and our prosecutor to try them. If they get tossed out by a judge, so what? At least we tried. And I think that that would set a precedent that animal control and animal abuse will not be tolerated in Grand Rapids. So as much as I would love to pass this around, if you would like to hold it afterwards, you certainly may. And I would like to speak quickly, as Commissioner Anter said, things that are within your all's purview. Can you guys stop animal abuse in Grand Rapids? No. And I get that. I appreciate you doing what you can to help provide support to those of us that are pushing for animal abuse awareness in Grand Rapids. And I am hoping that you can encourage our Animal Control and encourage our prosecutors to bring cases such as this, especially when we have photographic evidence. So, thank you very much. This is heavy. I am done.
Thanks, Julie. Anyone else today? Welcome to the Kent County Board of Commissioners.
Kind of tough going over there after that was pretty heavy right
No
there.
props.
But my name is DeAndre Jones, and I'm a local entrepreneur and hope to be a universal world changer one day. I'm just speaking on the medical cannabis thing. I understand that about 1,000 people in Kent County have HIV, I believe. And why I say that is because I'm a young black man and I like to dress kind of what people would say street or hood. Even though I come from that, I hate that people look at me that I'm just a street or hood guy. I believe I'm politically smart, even though I'm always not politically correct. But hey, that's another discussion. But I just wanted to speak on the fact that I'm a young entrepreneur. I'm trying to do great things for the community, try to do things at the county level, at the state level, and just try to interact with people at all types of aspects of government, because I understand that one branch of government or one board of commission can't change it, but it takes a whole collective of people to actually make the changes that really need to be done around here. And so, as I'm dressed like this and everything else, I just want to speak on those entrepreneurs that may look streeter, just as hood as the craziest person in Chicago, but has the heart of Gandhi, has the heart of Mother Teresa that wants to be a servant in the community. Like, I would like people to look at me and one day potentially have the impact like Dr. Sebi had in developing maybe a cannabis strain. Now, I don't know if he developed a cannabis strain, but one of the things I've been working on is trying to develop something that can actually cure people. One thing about me is that I've never wanted to create something where I can just strictly make money over, but I think I get more satisfaction from actually meeting somebody to say, hey, you created this and it actually helped me, it cured me, and that is more satisfaction than what I can ever receive from any type of material award or anything, to actually create something that will heal people. And so I just wanted to just put that out there just because I've been going to a collective of meetings and I'm just very passionate about cannabis. My house has been raided for it. I've gone through a lot of things about it. But I just wanted to say, like, at the county level, just because I know, like, health and public safety is a big thing, and I want to get into the cannabis industry, but I also want to work with you. So trying to find that political standpoint where I can be able to influence both without looking kind of bad, if you understand what I'm saying. But I just wanted to speak on that and young entrepreneurs and just being able to potentially make change and eventually get into politics myself where I can influence policies and maybe do criminal justice reform where the state of Illinois has expunged 8,000 records, but the state of Michigan invests more in the prison than education, and that is very sad to me. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Welcome to the Kent County Commission.
Thank you. It's my first time here, and I'm a constituent of Commissioner Talon's.
Can you give us your name and address, please?
Yep, my name is Julie Bukema, and my address is 145 Alger, Grand Rapids, Michigan, 49507. And I would just like to request that each of you read the email that Julie sent you yesterday. I have been a foster for dogs and cats for many years, and I would encourage each of you to foster an animal, especially one that has been abused, so you can have your mindset changed about this issue. I've spent weeks getting a dog to trust humans again. And I've held dogs as they've had to be euthanized because they were too far gone. These animals need our help. We won't be going away, we can't. But we are here to help however we can. So please let us help you work on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else today for public comment? Come on up. Welcome to the Kent County Commission.
Thank you. Michael Scruggs, Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm glad to be here today. Thank you all that voted for bill reform. To you all who did not vote for bill reform, I understand that the language is circumspect. I also understand that the line items don't get specific when it comes to jurisdiction, but it is a legislative priority. It is something that you all should undertake. Why? Our jails are filling up, but crime is down. So many of those individuals are there because they cannot make bail. Many of them are there because the disparity in our legal system. They are not getting adequate due process. They are there because there is a double standard in our legal system. Well, one of the solutions that we can look at is collaborating with law enforcement agencies. Maybe we should move from citation instead of incarceration. Low-level crimes. Those municipalities within our county can find new ways of doing business. They don't have to lock everyone up. They'll save thousands of dollars if we went from citation instead of incarceration. The man hours that it would save. It would lessen the jail population. The county wouldn't lose any money running the jail because the state is closing many of the prisons, and we can contract with them to bring those prisoners here and transition them on the way in, and they can spend that money with us. So when we look at bail reform, there are some solutions. We just need to make those collaborations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else today? All right, seeing no one else, we're on to Commissioner reports, not miscellaneous reports. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I have two reports. I was at the Kent County Township Supervisors meeting this week, and one of the items discussed was what happened with House Bill 6049, and one of the requirements is for each county in the state to have a designated assessor that would act if an assessing district, a local government in Kent County, fails to pass the respective AMAR review. So the group discussed this at length, and Mike DeVries from Grand Rapids Township will be in touch with Wayman to share their thoughts on the direction the county will be hopefully taking on this topic. So I just wanted the board to know that that was a topic that we spent quite some time on. I also want to add they were very clear to thank our Sheriff's Department, because we also had a presentation from the Road Commission. And the Road Commission truly values the 10,000 hours that the Kent County Sheriff's Correctional Crew assist with tree removal and cleanup. So they wanted to let everyone know that that truly makes a significant difference in how they're able to manage that part for tree removal and cleanup. I also now want to go on to my second report for the Kent County Parks Foundation. I'm sure everyone is curious how well Something Grilling did, and I think this is a fabulous gold star for our community to have our individuals in our community show up to participate, to write checks. So our county government function of handling parks is financially supported by the Parks Foundation, and they netted $193,000 that night.
With the tornado.
Yes, with a tornado. Of course, it didn't hurt that the board's decision was to move the ask to the beginning of the program instead of at the traditional end. And I will add that that $236,000 came in, and that $193,000 is the net. So an additional $193,000 is in the mix that continues to help support our government-run, owned Kent County parks. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other official reports today? Seeing none, we will move on to miscellaneous. Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. I first want to thank those who came to give public comment today, especially those who came to raise this issue on the incident from August and the ongoing incident. Thankful to hear from them, encouraged by their leadership, and just hope that we can continue that conversation and figuring out how we can empower our health department to bring a resolution to issues like this and give them the resources they need. Lastly, on a second note, last night I was fortunate to participate in now formerly called the Mayor's Millennial Advisory Board, but now called the Mayor's Next Gen Advisory Board, because there are multiple young generations now that are involved in public policy and community service. It involved a panel involving myself, Mayor Bliss, Luis Avila from Varnum and the DDA, Megan Saul from the City of Wyoming, as well as Christian Grant, our Public School Board President, and participated with a group of 80 some odd young people south of 35 involved in community service throughout this region, not just in the City of Grand Rapids. And to anyone who has believed before that young folks are not interested in community service or public policy, I'd just say look at that photograph, because frankly it was an inspiring group of folks that want to get involved. I encouraged a number of folks to look at our website for the next time we have board vacancies, and hopefully we'll continue to see new leadership popping up from that. Thank you.
Commissioner Melton.
Thank you, Chair. I have two very quick, just a wonderful example again of our private businesses that choose to become involved in our public education. Steelcase has just given Kentwood a grant of $130,000 to try and enhance families' involvement. And I don't have all the specifics. I'm sorry, I couldn't bring it up on my phone. But just, again, it just always warms my heart when I see our private sector reaching out to the public schools and realizing that, in fact, there is a good collaboration that can be done there. So that was very exciting. And of course, it's in Kentwood, which is even more exciting for me. The second one is, too often I think we sit here and we have lots of great discussions and they're wonderful, but we don't always appreciate who we are as persons. And we have someone here who is very visible in the community. He's very engaged, he's involved, he's extremely educated, he's very approachable, and he is very, very well respected among all walks of life in Kent County. And as far as I'm concerned, it is an honor to serve with members such as Dave Bilkowski. I went to the Disability Advocates dinner last night, and it's absolutely overwhelming when you have people that come up and say, you are so lucky to serve with persons that are so involved in the community as he is. So I thank you, Dave. I thank Disability Advocates for what they do. And so this morning, some of you came to my mind, whether you wanted to or not. One of them was you, Diane, because you know what? I absolutely, positively agree with you. We have got to change our restrooms on this floor. It is unconscionable, if I say that word right, that we do not have a handicap accessible bathroom on our floor. There is absolutely no excuse for that, and I would really like to encourage whatever it is that I can do to be part of that solution. I would love to be on that task force, whatever it takes, so that anybody and everybody can come through this door and not have to go all the way downstairs to the first floor if they need those facilities. Harold, you were on my mind because one of the things that that was voted or was auctioned off last night was to get to go behind the scenes at the zoo and feed the penguins. And so I am going to get to go and feed the penguins. I'm so excited. And then the other is our sheriff's department. My goodness, I think anything I've ever been to, I have seen someone from the sheriff's department there, and that just speaks so highly. You have the option to say no, that we can't be here or we can't send someone tonight, and yet you all, one way or another, find a way to be at these fundraisers, at these community events, and my hat just goes off to you because I know you are busy doing other things. So that is my miscellaneous. Thank you.
Wonderful. Commissioner Womack.
Yes, I just want to thank everybody that came out for public comment, and I'm a Kent County Commissioner, but I'm also a community activist. So for those that were speaking about the animal cruelty, I hope you can give me an email or give me your contact information before you leave, or write me a letter with your contact information, because I'd like to have some contact to know when some of those things are happening and see how other members of our county can get involved with making sure that animals are treated fair. And I know growing up in an environment where there were a lot of pit bull fights, a lot of people don't understand that some of the cruelty to these animals that owners are doing are being watched by children. Then they mimic it, and it also affects how children will treat other children, because we were affected by the pit bull fights. It wasn't uncommon for us to watch those fights and then turn around and be wrestling with each other later, and considering it some type of fun. So it can be neglectful to the entire house, and there's no telling what someone else, what neglect may be going to human beings from someone that would hang weights around the neck. I could be totally off, key on that, but we need to be more vigilant, and I like to get involved as an activist on that. To D. Jones, who came in here today, I would really like to mentor you and walk with you if you would allow me, because you remind me of myself 20 years ago, and it's funny, last night I was thinking about myself 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and I said, I was crazy. Not saying you're crazy, but I just see how the same goals, the same passion, the same hunger, but as it became refined as I grew, and I still was able to do, I had the same dreams as you. I want to help the youth. I want to help children. I had entrepreneurial goals that I did achieve, but they didn't end up exactly the same way I thought 10, 20 years ago. And I'm just glad that I had people that could mentor me and walk with me, and people that believed in me, even though I was a dangerous person to get close to 20 years ago. When I look back, like, who would risk getting close to me? Because I had a lot going on, but not saying you're exactly like me, but the passion and the goal to help the youth. So I definitely would like to get in contact with you, and I just want to thank even some of my mentors on this board. You know who you are, and they're both Republicans and Democrats, people who reach out to me during tough times and help me through those, whether it's an act of kindness, advice, people who mentor me on things since I've been here these 4 years. So all through life, we continue to be mentors. So I want to thank my fellow county commissioners that do step up and help me along the way to grow.
Commissioner Hennessy.
Thank you. There were many competing things for our attention last night. I happened to attend the Eagle public hearing, Eagle being formerly called DEQ, and it had an informational session, a Q&A, and then a public hearing on what is a consent order on Viant, a company that uses ethylene oxide to sterilize medical equipment. And I would particularly like to note that the Kent County Health Department has been very involved with the surveillance that has gone on the, air emissions of this chemical into the community. And they were there last night and have really worked hard to do a cancer survey, which has certainly been non-conclusive in terms of being able to prove any cancer as a result. Mm-hmm. That just is what it is, because it's very hard to do. Mm-hmm. But I would like to note that the Kent County Health Department has been very involved. I also would note that as there is a consent order that would call for this company to pay $110,000 worth of fines. And just as a point of interest, those fines would go just to the state of Michigan general fund. And there is really no provision where groups that are found at some fault for their money to come back and to help that community. And in this case, the community is one that is a federally recognized community of need through its poverty and its crime rates, and, has also suffered now, under these excessive air emissions of ethylene oxide. And so, it's sort of it is a difficult situation, and as it stands right now, there is nothing that can be done.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Just congratulations to experienced Grand Rapids leader and President Doug Small on being named to the Grand Rapids Business Journal's 200 list of region's most powerful business leaders and executives. And Mike Gusfather. Thank you. So we might as well give two shout outs for that, so thanks.
All right. Any other miscellaneous today? Commissioner Ponstein?
Thank you, Chair Boulder. I want to join Commissioner Wooden and Commissioner Womack on the public comment today. I think it shows the example is that there's a lot of things that go on in the county that affect a lot of the people that we represent. Maybe it's not in our direct wheelhouse, but when a government's a problem for any of our residents, we should advocate for them. So I appreciate all three of you speaking today. The issue of bail reform is a crucial one. The problems the cannabis industry is having with people that want to do good with the product versus those that think it's the evil is an ongoing discussion that we've had for decades. On the animal abuse, people, my heart goes out to you. I mean, animals in this country are pretty much part of the family, and it's an issue that's front and center on TV commercials, in the media. And, I had an opportunity for a short time to serve as a U.S. rep on one of the largest northern breed rescues in Canada. The stories that you just hear of what happened. So the passion you folks have it, you've got my support. There are things people can do in this county to help, Not only can you foster, but you can volunteer to walk dogs at the clinic. Our last dog was a rescue dog. I could say it wasn't from Kent County, but it was brought in from Canada. But the stories are the same wherever you are and doing that type of work. So I want to appreciate that. And then to dovetail on that, it is so nice to be at a meeting after my 11 years, 10 of them on the legislative committee, that the legislative committee took the majority of the time at the full county commission meeting. So just to add on that, citing these 3 examples that I just cited, no, I don't think we should get involved on pointed issues. But the way government operates, the way legislation goes through, all of that has changed drastically in the past 10 years. I could go home today after this meeting and I could send 20 emails on 50 topics to every single representative that I have because it's important to someone. And yeah, there's a line there of do we want to cross it or shouldn't we? I know when the governor proposed 52-cent tax, the MAC Board of Directors and the membership wanted it voted down. We don't want anything to do with it. But what happens when you do that then is that a solution will eventually come for roads. Hopefully infrastructure is included in that. If you exclude yourself right off the bat, you're not going to be at the table to try to find a solution that's going to benefit the whole state of Michigan. And that's so true. Whether you volunteer on a MAC standing committee, maybe some of the things that you're talking about may not affect Kent County, but at least you're at the table when something that may affect us comes apart. It's the same thing with the National Association of the County, especially the 3 that I sit on. Yeah, a lot of the issues don't affect Kent County directly, but at least I'm at the table, so when something comes, and that's just what, the message to all the commissioners is there's a lot of ways to stay involved, but you've got to stay involved. Just the way legislation works through special interest groups, especially in this era of term limits. There's a lot of special interest groups that are very well organized to make sure what's important to them gets through. That's not always going to be good for us. So we've got to be at the table. I don't want to stranglehold the legislative committee, but we've got to be active. Those standing things that we stand for and those priorities need to be nimble because things change on a daily basis. The days of 20 years ago where it takes, 6-7 months to work something through and you have plenty of time to discuss, doesn't always happen. So that's all I've got to say.
Any
Thank
other
you.
commissioner miscellaneous? Okay, I just have a couple things. I want to, again, thank the folks that came out today for public comment as well. As any of you know me, I'm a big dog person. I have 3. But I do know that your work is very difficult and it's very emotionally challenging. And anytime a group of citizens comes to highlight something we need to fix within any of our departments, I think we need to be open to looking at that. And we need to constantly process, improve, and we need to focus on being the best and not mediocre. So I appreciate you highlighting these issues, and moving forward, we will continue to do what we can to make that department and all of our departments the best we can do. And I hope everyone shares that vision for all of our county departments. I also want to know a scheduling issue for November with Thanksgiving. Our meetings will be the 1st and 3rd, not the 2nd and 4th. So just note that on your calendar. And I will call on Commissioner Bukowski for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Chair. I move to adjourn, subject to your call, to Thursday, November 7th, 2019, at 8:30 a.m. for an official meeting.
Moved by Commissioner Bukowski. Support by Commissioner Womack. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, we are adjourned.